Silicon Valley Bank, the 15th largest bank in the U.S., went belly up into the tune of billions in losses.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
Well, but leave it to old Joe to
Are you retarded?
keep an eye on it because, nothing bad could happen, like 2008 or anything like that.
Fuck.
I'm Jazz Berganzo, and this is What's Next. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, I am your humble host, Jazz Berganzo. This is another episode of What's Next. Of course, this is the weekend edition. The Silicon Valley Bank, 15th largest bank of the U.S., housed billions of dollars of assets, went belly up. Lenders in the UK and the EU lost $30 billion overnight. But Joe Dimension's on the case. He says, we will keep an eye on it. We're not spending money, Ukraine. We're not spending money, China. We're not spending money. So banks here in the U.S., you're good, right? Nah, nothing bad could happen, like a repeat of 2008 or anything under Obama and Dementia Joe. The irony. Let's take a look. This coming out of Breitbart. SVB International fallout. UK and EU lenders lose $30 billion overnight as panic spreads. The fallout from the run on the Silicon Valley Bank in California went international overnight, with British and European Union lenders seeing nearly $30 billion wiped off their portfolios, and the Bank of England stepping in to take over the insolvency process for the British arm of the SVB to protect the deposits of British firms tied to the bank. Since Friday, the Stocks Europe 600 Bank Index, which also includes the leading British lenders, saw a mass sell-off in wake of the collapse of the Silicon Valley Bank, the largest American bank failure since the '08 crisis. In total, European and UK banks saw an index of one-day decline of 3.8%, 33.5 billion EU wiped off their balance sheets. Some of the UK's kingdom's largest banks saw their shares fall significantly. HSBC, declining by 4.6%, Lloyds 3.3%, NatWest 2.5%, London Times reports. British-based investors at the SVB have already reported failed to withdraw their funds from the UK-based branch in their investment banks, spreading fear that tech startups could potentially go under if the government does not intervene, as we saw in 2008 with the bailouts, save the bank. The British tech startup lobby group said there is a sense of panic among the members, with Executive Director Dom Hallett saying, "We know that there is a large number of startups in the investors in the ecosystem who have significantly exposure to the SVB UK and are very concerned." Quote, "We have been engaging with the UK government, including Treasury and Number 10, about the potential impact, and I know that work has been going on overnight on policy options," he added. In a response to the failure of the potential contagion, the Bank of England, Britain's equivalent of the U.S. Federal Reserve, announced that late-night statement on Friday evening. It is planning to use its bank insolvency scheme to put the British branch of the SVB into resolution, which would allow for depositors to receive up to 85,000 EU in the coming days of the government's deposit insurance program. An administrator will then be put in charge of the insolvency process to divvy up the remains of the UK assets between its creditors and large depositors, according to a report by the Financial Times. The financial advisory firm Impath has been rumored as a potential candidate for the administration process. However, this has yet to be confirmed. Attempting to quell the panic, the BOE said that SVB UK has a limited presence in the UK and no critical functions supporting the financial system. The California Department of Financial Protection and Innovation has described SVB as being, quote, sound financial condition. Really? Before the run on the bank, which saw customers withdraw up to $42 billion, they were running to the local SVB bank in California, and they were trying to withdraw all their monies because, they were having flashbacks, resulting in the bank having a negative cash balance of $958 million. while the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, FDIC, in the U.S. has pledged that all insured deposits with the bank will be honored. This may not be a huge comfort to many of the bank's customers, given they reportedly only 7% of SVB deposits are insured. 7%. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen, yes, I left my check on the table for Ukraine, said during a House and Ways and Means Committee hearing Wednesday that the government continues to monitor the Silicon Valley Bank crisis. I'm sure you are. The failure of the United States' 16th largest bank, I thought it was the 15th, my bad, has already begun to see calls for a federal bailout, which will once again see average Americans send their hard-earned tax dollars, your money, my money, to some of the wealthiest in the country instead of letting the creative destruction of capitalism run its course. A lot of us who remember in '08 were saying the same thing. Government, do not bail these companies out. Let them fail. Former Democrat president candidate Andrew Yang said either the Treasury Secretary, the Department, or the state of California should step in, arguing, in the absence of some kind of action, you'll see thousands of mass layoffs and defunct companies, a wipeout of a generation of startups, huge problem in California particularly, and a spreading financial contagion that will infect a host of regional banks at a minimum. Besides the risk of financial contagion, establishment figures on both the left and the right have argued it necessary for the national security to bail the bank to prevent its tech startup companies from going bust, therefore putting the United States at a disadvantage in the tech race against the likes of communist China. Yes, let's protect those jobs by taking your money and my money and bailing out these motherfuckers. That makes sense. There has been some pushback, however, against the idea of bailing out California-based bank, including from Congressman Matt Gaetz, who said, quote, if there's an effort to use the taxpayer money to bail out Silicon Valley Bank, the American people can count on the fact that I will be there leading the fight against such a bailout, and I'm sure there are others. Adding, the financial arm of the Silicon Valley has just been severed before our very eyes. Republicans pointed to the disastrous economic policies of dementia and ensured that bought inflation for triggering the bank's failures, while other conservatives noted that Silicon Valley Bank, likely deployed the use of woke environmental, social, and governance (ESG) scores on its operations, meaning that the bank may have prioritized left-wing causes instead of focusing on financial viability. We don't know how's this going to affect everybody else in the country right now. You're talking about the 15th, 16th largest bank going belly up. You had customers withdraw to the tunes of $42 billion of their own money. A lot of people, and I was watching Tucker this morning in regards to it, there were some who actually got arrested for, God forbid, wanting to pull out their money and protect it. Well, as we've seen over the last 2+ years, to the tune of $130 billion given to Ukraine for their proxy war, and he's asking for more. We've only seen the tip of this iceberg. And God forbid, this turns out into another 2008, because then we were on solid financial foundation. Now we are struggling with a hyperinflation, high taxes, high gas prices, high food prices. And if this thing hits the fan, if this shit hits the fan, we're all getting fucked. I'm Jasper Gonzo. This is What's Next. Want to see more just like this? Please leave a comment below. Like it, share, subscribe to it. And we'll catch you guys next time. Peace.